What's going on, family? We're gonna jump right into it. Hope y'all having a good weekend. It's Saturday, January 4th, 2025, which means today is culture. Culture. What is culture? One way of life. So how's your way of life? What we doing? How we moving? So I took a few notes like I do every day. My fancy notebook here, a little spiral. Looking like we're getting ready to be snowed in here in KC. Storm of the century. But we're going to chop it up real quick. I don't have a whole bunch for you tonight because I believe today's mathematics is broad, but we all know what it is. And it's the fourth in the daily mathematics, which is culture. Culture is your way. The way you present and carry yourself is your culture. I, self, Lord, and Master is our culture. Freedom is to free you from all the lies and wickedness of the devil's civilization. It's a pretty profound entry there, coming in at number 4 for culture. So when I think about it, it's specific, that word, specific points to culture. And I wrote 7 points here, and we're going to tap right into them. The non-material versus the material aspects of culture. From your language spoken to the foods eaten, the artistic expression, from your social equity to the values and beliefs held by a community. This is culture. And our culture will give us freedom. When it comes to language, I think about the song by Erykah Badu from the New America album called Twinkle. In her lyric, she said, they don't know their language, so they don't know their God. And every time, from the first time I heard that song, and every time I hear that song, I love it. You should look it up and check it out. But it just hits me. It hits me. You understand what I'm saying? They don't know their language. They don't know their God. They take what is given, even when it feels odd. So when I think about language and how important it is within different cultures and within different races, it's very imperative. You can walk into a room and hear, people from a different culture speaking in their language and in their tongue, and you can be, dumb, if you will, to anything that's being said. It's going literally in one ear and out the other because we lack the knowledge. And with no knowledge of the language, you can't have wisdom, so you can't act and move within that language base, if you will. And without the knowledge and the wisdom of those particular, that language coming out that culture, you'll never have understanding of that culture. So religion is language, I should say, is very imperative when it comes to culture. I think that is the first thing that has to be established within a culture. And once the language is set in place and you have your, language, the language can give you the writing system and the mathematical system coming from the language itself, you can be able to begin on the second point, which is religion. Communities often use their spiritual and religious practices to glue their cultures together. In most cases, it is this non-material culture that affects the material culture. So when you think about society, a lot of times all around the world, even here in America, you one has to ask yourself, what is it that drives culture the most? Is it the food? Is it the the music? Is it the dress codes? Is it the art? All these different things. And when I think about it, I believe it is that it's religion, all of our religions, whatever practice it is that thing there, religion itself, that drives that non-material, which is religion. It's not tangible, but it drives everything that is material, from our clothing, from the books that we read, from our dietary practices. Oh, I will eat this, or I won't eat that. These different things is all stem from our religious and spiritual practice, that non-material culture. So the language is a non-material culture. So these non-materials is what affects the micro, if you will, affects this macro. So the non-material affects the material. And that's the very next thing, the next point. After you begin to mold your community with your religious practice, whatever it may be, you look at some of the ancient tribes, they began to look at the stars and these different things and formulate spiritual practices around these certain times of the year. We're going to celebrate here, we're going to have a festival for this, or we're going to harvest here. These are certain practices which over time became a religion, and we add character names and deify these aspects and these essences that we see and observe throughout our time. Material, those things, those two non-material cultures affect all of these next material cultures we'll talk about. The very next point is food. Every culture on this planet is very well seen, and we share, we all indulge in each other's culture when it comes to food, from Chinese, Mexican, Indian, African, um, Middle Eastern, European, uh, Canadian, Hawaiian, all of these different places, even here in America, with our fusion menus, all of these fusion menus of all the different cultures that surround us. We found a way to bring them together and deliver what we call American cuisine, which is pretty much fusions of all of the world's cuisines, plus a few new innovations of our own. But those non-material effects, that even the food, like I said, certain things you cook with, like, oh, for instance, they can grow rice, pretty easily in the Far East. So rice is a big part of their diet. Versus here in the Western world, we can grow a lot of wheat and corn. So wheat and corn culturally is a part of our diet, and a lot of it, it goes into a lot of our meals. So just like beef and chicken and other things like that, we see the different aspects culturally even within our food systems. Then from the food, we start to turn towards the music and arts of it all. So like I said, excuse me, the two non-materials are affecting these materials. So the language and religion goes on to affect the material food, the material music, and the material art. So we get all types of music, just like the food. You get all types of music, and a lot of times when we go to, all of these different establishments, from the cantinas to the American buffet styles, the Chinese buffet, all of these different things, the chop houses and what have you. Each one of these establishments has their own culture, the subculture, if you will, within the broader culture. So you're looking at the Japanese culture. They do things. We may like drink sake. We have our own calligraphy. We speak our own language. All of these things within the Japanese culture, but the subculture within Japan, as far as different cooking styles, you have one style called hibachi, and a lot of people love the hibachi style so much so that it has made its way here to America. Tons of people go and eat hibachi style, where they cook your meal right in front of you and prepare it right in front of you. And it's live, pretty much a live cuisine, for lack of better words, and they do it right there in front of you. So that's something that comes from the Japanese culture. So that's their culture. So as you begin to, look around throughout the world and see different cooking techniques and styles like that, you can see the same thing within music. You'll hear certain instruments, certain rhythms, certain bases. Especially like when it comes to Spanish music, is some of my favorite non-American music to listen to. Even though I don't understand a lot of the things that's been said, being said at all, all the time, the rhythms and, like I said, the instruments that are being played, you can tell come from a certain region. Oh, that's culturally for them, or hip hop, all these culturally. As for the African American, most, everybody listens to it, but when ask what's the origins of these, of this, or of like I said, hip hop, what's the origins of country music, what's the origins of classical, what's the origins of reggaeton, and all this type of music. Bob Marley, for instance, I was listening to Exodus the other day, and you can just hear the cultural um, infusion, if you will. Just he infused everything that was Rastafari into his music. That Rastafari culture was very prevalent. You cannot listen to Bob Marley and not know that he was Rastafari. So culturally, he made it a point. He emphasized his culture within his music. And also with our art, we have to begin to uh, emphasize and underline our cultures within our art too. So even you know, like Africa, for instance, in Mexico, they have it down packed. In places like Hawaii too, they definitely have it down packed as far as artistic culture. From the paintings and the sculptures they got. You can look at the the places in eastern, the eastern islands and stuff like that, with the the Moais, and just the artistic style, if you will, that these certain people had. And you can look all around the world and begin to see certain aspects and techniques of architecture and art, and almost begin to trace back whose hand, the very hands that you know erected those sculptures, or pyramids, whatever it may have been. I talked about Nan Madal, and I think that was our first video on January 1st. And the architectural flyness, for lack of better words, of Nan Madal is just like next level. I encourage you all to, look up Nan Madal and just take a look at some of the structure, and how it was built and put together by, whoever those people were. It was great, and they definitely had, culture in their mind. Um, Also, culture, as you begin to move around, you can see the dress code. You know, how certain people in communities dress is a ultimate reflection, and not only mindset but of culture. Um, from you can look at the American culture, and look at the countries, from the big brim hats and the flannel collar shirts and blue jeans with the cowboy boots style. That's a cultural thing here in America. And then you can look even back to Americans, see the cultural aspects of the Negro, and in modern times, back then it was, it was suit and tie. That was very, that's where the black excellence even stems from. More stand up from the HBCU, and that type of culture, if you will, a subculture within the broader culture, even here. And then you have the hip hop culture. You know what I'm saying? White tee, blue jeans, baggy. Might throw on a jersey here and there. Might rock my chain, do the gold necklaces, dookie ropes. These, all these type of things is all cultural aspects, of America, but culture spreads across the planet Earth. It's spread, and it doesn't spread thin. It's pretty thick. Culture is thick. It's something that we cannot really live without. You know, it's attached to us. It is our way of life. Believe it or not. So the dress code is definitely fly. As far as we go, the African American culture is a significant culture. Not just here in America but worldwide. And um, I say we've made numerous contributions to not just here, but like I said, all across the planet. We can hear people listen to our music, um, from jazz, gospel, hip hop, blues, rock, all of it. R&B, even down to the very production of it. Yes, the lyrics too, and the vocal sounds, but even down to the very production, we can hear the whole world begin to mimic, and yeah, we use that word. We'll see the whole world begin to mimic our styles, and our culture, if you will. You know, uh, we see the the urban streetwear, from the joggers, matching hoodie and jogger type sets with the matching bags. We take brands like the Louis Vuittons and the Gucci and the Balenciagas, all of these designer wares, if you will, and really add our culture to it. And it's our culture that's able to turn, you know, all of these brands, not just the designer clothing brands, but all of these brands uh, up to a level, even we, didn't realize that it could be turned up to, and it's all through culture. We look at, um, the athletics here in America and all around the world. We turned the athletics up. It wasn't until, let's be honest, really, Negroes started getting into different, associations, from the NBA to the NFL and even the MLB. You know what I mean? We even seen it with the Negro leagues. We may not have had as much, financial infusion as the major leagues, but we definitely had the talent. You know what I mean? We definitely had the culture, if you will. We were selling out games. The Negro leagues were selling out just as much as the major leagues. And now you can look at it in NBA where players like Steph Curry, LeBron, you know, NB. We got guys that that's not even quote unquote from America, but still can come to America and be a part of like I said, the subculture that is, African America. Even though he may not be from the Americas, and it's pretty dope, and it's all stems from our culture. It's spread. It has spread wide, far and wide. And as we begin to see it more, I think we should double down on our language, double down on our spiritual practices and religion, double down on our dietary practices, and the foods that we like, and are really trying to make a transition in our dietary actions and practices. I see it all the time. I know it. I hear the conversations. So if it's something that can be done, which can be, and we see it being done. Let's continue to do those things, and sharpen each other's blades, and uh, become as healthy as possible. Teaching each other, excuse me, those techniques. Learning those cookbooks that grandma done handed down to you, mama left for you. auntie and them, the information is there. So it's on us to go gain that knowledge, go get the knowledge, apply the knowledge. Knowledge in action is wisdom. So you get that. Yeah, we start learning. We get in the kitchen and we start cooking. And we, um, you know, making ourselves healthier one step at a time with the food, with the music. Same thing. We hear all the type of music that's in the zeitgeist right now, and it's a bit unbalanced. I appreciate the music that Kendrick Lamar put out last year and over the summer. It gave us something to listen to and kept us really entertained. GNX dropped. What was that in November? And it pushed culture forward. Not only did I put on people in Cali, which was that Californian culture, you could hear it all through the music, but it put on for the broader culture, which is the African American hip hop culture. You know what I mean? And even more broader, which is just the Negro culture here in America, especially got heated during the Drake v. Kendrick battle that went on all summer. It was dope, and that definitely had to do all with culture. That whole battle was all about culture, and really whose culture was the realest, if you will, and who was fraudulent. So music is definitely one of our cultural standpoints here in America. So I believe that we have to start infusing more of our culture into our music and letting the world know what we stand for. Not just what big label, big music, big publishing and production wants, to agendize, if that's a word. Um, the art, from our arts, if everybody's not musical or whatever, but that's just my thing. But I still believe that at some point everything kind of becomes an art. It's the art of making sound, the art of cooking, the art of design and building, the art of architecture. Say that 10 times fast. The art of literature, if you're a writer. All of these, the art of technology and being able to code, and all of these things are art. It's an artistic talent or endeavor. So I you know would say double down on that also. When we start to build, our sculptures, we got new 3D printers and different stuff like that. So when people begin to see our artworks and our um, architecture, when we put it out into the world, it's just scream our culture just by looking at it. We no words should have to be spoken. You know what it is. When you go to places like Egypt, for instance, Ethiopia, for instance, East Africa, you know what it is. China, you know what it is. That it's screaming culture when you go to these places. So we want to begin to have the same type of effect within our culture. And the way that we do that is, like I said, is by letting it show. So that even down, like I said, we'll hit it again, the dress code. Being fly is good, but how we gonna do that? We, like right now I'm rocking my work shirt. I work at Mercedes Benz. We selling cars, we're moving parts, doing tires, all of that. You know what I mean? But it's the Mercedes Benz culture. It's the European culture. So even within our own cultures, we could begin to have our own automobiles and things of the same sort, but they have to scream our culture. What is our culture? Is it American? Is it African American? Is it strictly African? Is it black? In my opinion, I feel, and I'm choosing African American. I'll never detach myself from my descendants or my ancestors. So uh, the origins of where my people came from. So definitely putting all of those things into the aspects, even down to our dress, being fly, you know, uh, using the argyle textures and prints and different things like that, using the symbols and the signs, putting and infusing them into our clothing, all of the different colors and cuts. I've never seen anybody be as fly as us, if you will. Excuse my pride, but I'm borderline being truthful. I'm not. It's pretty real. So be fly. Be stand out. Even in our dress, it can say a lot when people see you walk in the room in a certain style. With that certain hat, that certain outfit, if you will. That certain jacket, those shoes. How it's put together, those accessories. The pendant on your necklace. What's it saying? The the dangling of the earrings for my ladies. What's there? It's all cultural aspects of who we are, and it can be brought out. So we double down and we bring it out through even our dress code. And last, and we're gonna rock out on culture for January 4th, 2025. Is our festivals and our holidays. This is how we remember and keep culture at the forefront. When you come here to America, we get July 4th, we get Labor Day, Christmas, Thanksgiving, you know, um, St. Patrick's Day for the Irish here, all of these different festivals and holidays to remember what? Culture. You understand what I'm saying? So, in order for us to constantly remember our culture and keep our culture at the forefront, we have to not only celebrate our holidays, but look out in the zeitgeist and see, what days can we stamp and make new ones for the next generation to remember days that we commemorate, good things that happen even within our lifetimes that we can say, hey, kids, hey, next generation, remember this day, you know, for the years to come, because it was a very significant day, what regardless of what may have happened, positive or negative, So it's the festivals and the holidays. We have a bunch within our community now, from Juneteenth, Black History Month, MLK Day, Garvey Day, uh, Essence Festival, Kwanzaa. It's a bunch of them, and I think it's high time that we really double down and really start putting that out in the forefront and not be so combative as to who these people were and what they did and all these type of things. The don't kill the messenger. you know let's just have the message. If a message of peace and righteousness was spoken, we'll carry that message out and make sure it gets to the next generations and make sure our culture lives on. So that's all I really wanted to share with you guys today. A moment of culture, a moment of mathematics, keeping us on the forefront, keeping us abreast. We want to keep the mathematics going every day: knowledge, wisdom, understanding. Today is culture. So we building on the knowledge and wisdom. We getting the understanding. Through those three things, we're able to make culture. We're able to build ourselves a culture. And with culture, we are truly free. Nothing can really stop us at that point, because we have all decided collectively what we want to be our way of life. We doing this, we doing that. I mean, even now we're deciding on the culture. All of us may not agree, but by buying in, if you will, we're agreeing to a lot of the aspects of African American culture or Black culture in modern day as we speak. So there are a lot of things that I look at, and I'm sure are things that you see that could use some tweaking. And whatever those things are, let's begin to tweak them and infuse our culture into it. Not necessarily saying we're stepping on anyone's toes. No, it's not. It's not necessary. We see a bunch of cultures out here really, already prevalent and living, door to door right next to each other. So it's not that we can't have ours too. So let's do it. Black excellence, Black exponential growth. That's what I want to see for 2025. I know we can do it. We already been on our way. We're well on our way. Let's continue to go. and we'll get there. Culture is freedom, and we here to stay. One love. This the mathematics. This the cipher. I'm your boy, Fleetwood Caddy Jones. Like, subscribe, check his hat. We be back. Culture, peace, gods, peace, earths.